I mean, this is fascinating. I need to circle one more time to the ability to create things as unique as changing the car in Grand Theft Auto, because I listed a couple cool ones, but also we could potentially have abundance of food. We could have endless energy. But just as there was a race to harness nuclear technology during the Second World War, you could also imagine an infinite technology that can create all this positive could also create an enormous amount of destruction. Is there a risk with unlocking this capability?
Absolutely. No doubt about it. The nuclear power that gives us lots of wonderful electricity has killed hundreds of thousands of people as well in bombs. And the power to have unlimited energy that we might get from this new theory outside of space-time, and the power to go from here to any galaxy without any elapse of time is wonderful. But the downside is that you could make the headset really nasty for other people. Once you have that kind of power, you are like playing God vis-a-vis people inside this headset. Absolutely. So yeah, it's the genie gets out of the bottle.
It seems as though humanity is evolving to see more outside of the headset, to try and better understand the true nature of reality. As we do that, what is your vision for how we will progress in the next 5, 10, even 50 years?
Well, my own guess based on my own experience of myself is, even though I've studied this stuff for 40 years and I've been working on consciousness outside of space-time for 40 years, deep down, I don't believe it emotionally, right? Deep down, I'm still, if someone put a gun to my head, I'd be scared to death. I'm very tied to my avatar, and we all are. So my guess is human nature isn't changing anytime soon, and we're going to continue to have these problems. If we get the new technologies, our old human nature, even though our theories are telling us that this is because we're all one, and your neighbor is yourself, and you should love your neighbor as yourself. That's what this technology is telling us, what the technology is based on. We're still addicted to our avatars, and so we will not, most of us will not use it that way. And we will not, that's my guess. And I'm looking at myself, right? I'm looking at my own human-centered, selfish-centered, Darwinian point of view that it's survival of me. If the science really makes this turn and says consciousness is fundamental, says really are one. If it turns out the science, this theory is a good next step, and science says yes, this is a good next step, and this next step does confirm what spiritual traditions have been saying, that you should love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself, just looking through a different headset. I think that will have a big impact. When technologies are evolving that are based on the idea that consciousness is fundamental, and that's where the technology is coming from, that will lend credence. So I think it will help us pull ourselves out, but it will be against, we will have to work against our avatar nature, which is to be self-centered. But I think it will give us the motivation to do that, to say it is worth the effort to let go of my addiction to myself as the center of the world, and making you my enemy, or making you someone of a different religion my enemy, and so forth. So I think once science says space-time is doomed and consciousness is fundamental and we are one, at least that's our next best theory, and here's the technology that comes from it, that will make people much more interested perhaps in meditation and letting go of themselves. Possibly, but I'm not saying it's going to be kumbaya right away. I don't think so. I just think that right now the spiritual traditions have no technology. So the smart person is just not going to. They're not going to bet on them. If you have technology, then maybe you know something. Now the technology is on those who say the physical world is all there is, and there's no spiritual world. But if the technology is now from those who say no, there is something that transcends the physical world and it is spiritual, that changes the culture. That will fundamentally change it.
One of the really beautiful take-home messages, and in particular, you hit on this throughout the book, is, we used to be amazed at optical illusions, right? And you have many really beautiful examples of, perceptual illusions and things like that in the book. And then we learned that a dog whistle is not heard by us, right? But it's heard by dogs, and there's a difference in perception ability, right, across the auditory system, the olfactory system, the visual system. We're only seeing a very limited, set of wavelengths. So for me, what you're presenting is kind of the next level, of this kind of conversation. And I think that's something that everybody can hold on to. In the same way that you learned, right, that the auditory system, the olfactory system, the visual system has a tremendous variation, so does our perceptual system about consciousness, about intuition, and even things like psi phenomenon, things that we couldn't get our heads around. What if those are just different parts of a spiritual wavelength that you're helping us tap into with this, level of scientific inquiry?
That would be the thing. We can get a mathematical model of this so that it's no longer just a hand wave, and then just isolated examples of I had this experience and they had this. We now have a mathematical framework which makes a coherent prediction, so we can now start to predict the psi phenomena to several decimal places and then go measure them. Now we're playing the right game.